Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Around the nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you on this Tuesday evening. Welcome to the show. Got a lot of stuff for you guys today. We're going to have a little bit of fun. As usual, we've got lazy-ass Trump. Presidential harassment. That's always fun. The Kushner story from yesterday. Joe Biden. We go after Joe Biden again. This time, of course, for not being... Okay, well, look, he's wrong on a lot of policy. I understand that because he's very centrist. But he's also wrong on Donald Trump. And so we're going to do that. We're going to go after that, and we'll talk about it. And then Jon Stewart goes after Congress. You're going to love that video. Absolutely love it. So before we get into it, earlier today, I don't know if you guys missed it. I didn't really get a chance to promote it all that much, but I was on the Epic live stream. And so I basically talked about net neutrality. And I think it was great. I want to thank them, Fight for the Future, for putting on that Epic live stream and talking about net neutrality, which is super, super incredibly important topic, trying to get net neutrality back so that we have no gatekeepers on the internet. As usual, I was a rambling mess. I don't know if there's video of that. Hopefully I did a decent job. I didn't even get to mention how much actually, how important the internet is when it comes from a standpoint of gaming. And so that's something that I wanted to talk about real quick. You guys know, those of you who are fans of the show, I think you know I'm something of a little bit of a gamer. I like video games, and so I like having a fast internet connection. I like having the internet not gated, not having to pay extra, because look, that's what would happen is that these companies, these ISPs, would start charging companies fees in order to get them to use Fastlane, right? And so the companies, what would they do? They'd basically pass on the cost to us so that we would end up having to pay actually more to play our favorite games online. That would suck. And so we already pay enough as it is in DLCs and whatnot. The state of gaming is, at this point, horrendous with all the DLC, pay to win, et cetera, et cetera. And then add on, a charge to be able to play online at a decent speed. Horrible. So that's one reason, of course, net neutrality, super important. Also, my livelihood kind of depends on it. So also real big importance to me, but that's, of course, not the whole reason, of course. It sure plays a part. Being completely honest with you, I actually like having a livelihood. And the internet makes it possible for me to do that, but also, more importantly, it's a disseminator of information. And you put that power into the hands of just a few corporations, ISPs, well, you're not going to be able to get that information out. And it's going to be the establishment mainstream line. And that's all you're going to get, because nobody else is going to have enough money to pay for these ludicrous internet speeds in order to actually switch up to the fast lane. And so that's a problem, right? And so I'm so glad that I was invited to go and talk about this. Because, again, it's one of the most important topics. Another topic that I wanted to talk about real quick is Patreon, right? So let me just start out by thanking some patrons first. I want to thank Brooke Robital, Salvador Guevara, Trey, Marta Magdalena, Paul Malloy, Vincent Cleaver, and Christopher Lynn. So I want to thank those patrons, patreon.com/TYTNation. That's how you can support the show. Now, earlier today, I don't know if you guys follow me on Twitter. You should, at Jeff's Politics. Those of you who don't have a Twitter, I can understand why you don't follow me. But still, maybe you should follow me. Make a Twitter and just follow me. But I did say something because right now YouTube is in the midst of demonetizing entire channels. Steven Crowder got demonetized. I didn't really talk about that all that much, but there's a lot of YouTubers, a lot of people who have in network, especially Kyle Kalinske, etc. Demonetization is different than deplatforming. Demonetization, of course, makes it so that you can't make a living on YouTube, that you can't get any of the ad revenue. So going through that entire thing got me to look at, basically the financial situation for the show. And I'm still not at a point where if the unthinkable happened, demonetization of our entire channel, and I'm not saying it would happen, right? I'm saying it's a possibility, right? Because who knows what YouTube's going to do next. If that were to happen at this current point with how much support I get from Patreon and merch and all that stuff, couldn't run the show. I'd have to go out and get a second job. And so definitely would have to scale back on the amount of shows, maybe once a week, right? Because I'd be too busy working. So it's one of those things where it's like, I've got to build that base of support through crowdfunding, and I hate it. I hate crowdfunding. I hate asking people for money. But again, if if demonetization, and it hit us, I think last year, pretty hard. If we got hit by that, like our channel demonetized, that's it. Like we're done. We're sunk. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's important that there is crowdfunding. It's important that people get support. And so, just remember that for your favorite creators. Doesn't have to be me. But it'd be nice if it were me. I'm not going to lie. But support your favorite creators if you're able to. Secular Talk, Humanist Report, David Dole, TYT, TYT Nation, all the different creators that you like. Try to support them best you can, because you don't know. We don't know if you're going to get hit with demonetization. I know we get plenty of videos that get demonetized, that talk about sensitive topics like war, all that stuff. And so, it's important. It's important to support, because who else do you have that's going to spread the progressive message if you don't have independent creators that are, that don't rely on ad money or shouldn't rely on it? And I don't want to rely on ad money. But that's where we're at. Okay. So, there's a question here. Let's see. If I were to join your channel through YouTube, you get demonetized. You no longer get revenue from the channel. No, it's just from ads. So that's where that's where that comes from. It's just advertising. What you get as a channel member is just supporting a channel without ads, and or without the need for ads. And I believe YouTube is working on a way for members to not have to view ads for their support, and I can't wait for that to happen, so that you guys get, you can support the show and not have to view ads. Sunglasses Girl asks, do you post on Facebook? I do. Facebook.com/TYTNation. We got about 5,000 follows there. So, if you can like the page or follow the page, that would help out. Okay. TYT member. I'm already a TYT member. Do you get any revenue? No, I do not. So we're affiliated with TYT, but we do not gain revenue from the membership program through the Young Turks. We do not. That is a completely separate thing. Where we get revenue is advertisements, merchandise, our own merchandise, not TYT merchandise. And let's see, Patreon revenue, ads, of course. I'm just going through the different things that we do. But no, we don't get any of that. So just answer that question. Okay. All right. Okay. So enough about that stuff. We got a show, so let's do it. Okay. All right. Now, President Trump is the laziest president we've ever had. Not exactly a secret. He never works, barely reads, and doesn't understand policy, nor does he attempt to understand policy. We know that. He's also consistently distracted by things like shiny objects, poll numbers, even his own name, which was hilariously used to try to get him to pay attention to policy briefings, and is overall monumentally lazy. And, of course, according to the New York Times, he is also half-assing his own re-election campaign. Well, that's wonderful. That's great. Now, the newspaper said, quote, in a recent State of the Race briefing in Florida with Brad Parscale, his campaign manager, Mr. Trump, was consistently distracted and wanted to discuss other things than his campaign, according to people familiar with the meeting. When it came to his campaign, his only focus, or his main focus, was basically on his approval numbers. Really. Now, his approval numbers are dismal, as they always been. Even his post-bar memo bump, gone. Just gone. Now, why is that? Well, it's because Donald Trump is a loser. He's a failure. He hasn't actually done anything to help regular people. Corporations, absolutely. But regular voters, not so much. And that is, of course, a big problem if you're trying to win re-election. What are you going to hang your hat on, right? Now, Mr. Trump, however, if ever, rarely speaks to aides about what he hopes to accomplish with what would be a hard-won second term. His interest is entirely in the president and mostly on the crisis of the moment. Translation, he's got no plans. He's already done, of course, the most important thing. He already won. He won the election once, and he's like, I don't know, I won once, I could win it again, without actually doing any sort of plans. No, but what he doesn't understand is that his campaign was a flash in the pan, right? It was a freak win, because he was against the most unpopular politician in the country, Hillary Clinton. It was a campaign, it was a contest of two deeply unpopular characters. And he was more popular, still is more popular, than Hillary Clinton. If you can believe it. Now, again, he's not doing anything because A, he's lazy, 2, he's already won, and so in his own head is like, okay, well, I'll just do the same thing that I did before. Come up with stupid nicknames, and then just do basically nothing but go out and rally, right? And other important thing is that he did slash his own taxes. What more is there to do? What other plans does he have? Only to win again for the sake of winning. Which is why, of course, according to the Times, Trump has shown no interest in formulating a new message for his campaign, instead continuing with the winning Make America Great Again slogan from his last race, and adding that he also wants to keep America great. But you can't do both at the same time. You can't make America great again while also keeping America great. Because if you're trying to make America great again, that would assume that America's not great. And so you can't exactly keep America great if it's not great. Does that make any sense? No, of course not. But that's Trump. He makes no sense. He doesn't think about these things. And again, he's too lazy to come up with a plan. And in general, too lazy. And not only that, but he's focused on ridiculous things. When he actually decides he wants to focus on something, when he actually wants to work on something, it's something that nobody really cares that much about. But he does. Let me give you an example. Privately, Mr. Trump has griped about traveling too much, because he's lazy, but then lashed out at aides demanding to know, why am I not doing more rallies? Well, if you're complaining about constantly traveling, then you come, and ask, why am I not doing more rallies? Isn't that a direct contradiction? I'm traveling too much, and yet not enough. Makes no sense. But here's the ridiculous thing. He also insists on having final approval over the songs on his campaign list. Give me the iPod. Okay, we're going to have this song, and we're going to have this one. Okay. Yeah, but what about your message? What about the things that actually make a successful re-election campaign? Can I see the song list again? Oh my God. Here we go. Not only that, but he also wants final approval over the campaign merchandise, while never asking to see a budget for 2019. That's Trump's style in a nutshell. And it's because he does not care. Now look, you could understand maybe why he's not in gung-ho campaign mode. I get it, right? He does have the advantage as an incumbent. And again, they do have an advantage. I mean, to give you an example, Obama did not campaign much in 2011 when he was running for re-election in 2012. In fact, according to David Axelrod, a former top advisor to Mr. Obama, he said, quote, "At this point in the cycle, President Obama was pretty consumed by governing. He was briefed on the startup, but we didn't have our first campaign meeting until the fall of 2011. Okay, so going by that timeline, Donald Trump could be, focused on governing until about September, October, and be perfectly in line with what previous presidents have done. The only difference is Trump doesn't actually care about governing. He doesn't care about policy, doesn't care about governing. He's a one-pager kind of guy. Now that means he does not read past a page, if that. And it's not like his aides haven't tried all sorts of tricks to get him to read his briefings or to read anything. And they even went so far as to pepper his name throughout so that he would pay attention. And this would be even to shorten it to tweet-like length segments. I wonder at this point if his aides just haven't given up. I mean, between that and like the 8 hours of executive time, where he does nothing more than watch Fox News while stuffing cheeseburgers into his bloated mouth hole with one hand and tweets out with the other. It is a wonder that anything gets done. Oh, right. It doesn't get done. Which I hope, will hurt him in the election. And if it doesn't, oh boy. I mean, really, what accomplishment can he hang his hat on? Nothing. Not tax cuts for the rich. Certainly not building the wall, because he hasn't. But he does have one advantage. He can lie, and he lies shamelessly, and people believe him. Oh, boy. Okay. Moving on. Now, President Trump kicked off Tuesday with a very long, incoherent rant focused on a House hearing that talked about the Mueller report. Now, Trump tweeted this out, quote, "Jerry Nadler's Trump-bashing show is a bust. Headline, New York Post, Fox and Friends. The greatest witch hunt of all time continues. All crimes were by the other side." Oh, my God. "But the committee refuses to even take a look. Deleting 33,000 emails is the real obstruction," and much more. What do you mean? Much more? What? Okay, look. You want to talk about the Clinton server, right? I guess he appears that he wants to have an investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server. Well, no, the problem with that server is that it was just that you shouldn't have a private server. Why? It's because you want that server to have classified material that is unprotected because it can be hacked. While Donald Trump, during the election, said, "I want Russia to hack the emails to find the 33,000 missing emails," which, of course, she contends that they're all personal emails, and so they're of no value when it comes to any sort of investigation. Well, try telling that to a Trump supporter or a QAnon person who thinks, "Oh, no, this is proof that Pizzagate is real. Hillary Clinton is actually a lizard person and that Trump is the Messiah. It's in the emails. We just got to find them. Just got to find those 32,000 deleted emails. And look, while it looked really bad, right? And by the way, this is not what the investigation was about, right? I mean, during the election, they did talk about those emails, and they were incredibly damaging, by the way. And as damaging as they were, and as damaging as a private server was, and I've talked about that, it actually wasn't considered criminal. It was considered incredibly negligent. And I would agree with that assessment. However, when it comes to campaign finance violations, as well as obstructing an official investigation, well, that's criminal, right? No matter who does it. And in this case, it happened to have been Donald Trump with at least 2 different documented felonies, according to the report. Now, the committee, of course, refuses to take a look back at Hillary Clinton, right? Because under Republicans, they did. They did look at all this stuff. And this is under the FBI, which was not a liberal organization, right? They looked at all this stuff. They looked at Benghazi, and they found absolutely nothing. But then again, Donald Trump still says, no, the criminality is on the other side. No, you know what sounds criminal? Influencing the DNC primary. That seems, it's not criminal, but boy, it sure feels like a lot of people got robbed. I know we did. I know I feel robbed by the whole thing, but not necessarily criminal. So what is he talking about when he goes to all crimes were done by the other side? He's just projecting at this point. But he's going to continue to try to make his point by quoting Lindsey Graham, one of Donald Trump's biggest bootlickers. He says, quote, Mueller has spoken. And actually he has. But as you can see, he's not going to say what Mueller actually said. He said he found no collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. Not enough evidence. The bottom line is what the Democrat House is doing is trying to destroy the Trump presidency, which has been a tremendous success. And I can assure you that we're done with the Mueller investigation in the Senate. I don't know why I was using a Trump voice when that's Lindsey Graham. They could talk to John Dean until the cows come home. We're not doing anything in the Senate regarding the Mueller report. We're going to harden our infrastructure against 2020. Now, interestingly enough, they didn't actually find that quote from Lindsey Graham. It only came from Donald Trump. Okay, well, interesting. But okay. Has Mueller spoken? Again, I just mentioned yes. He said not enough evidence of a criminal conspiracy involving Russia, but as I pointed out, tons of obstruction, which again is a crime, and also campaign finance violations. Those are also a crime. Okay, we should look into that. We should investigate that. Maybe we should investigate or open up impeachment hearings so we can bring all of Donald Trump's criminality to light, especially when it comes to his financial crimes, like possible money laundering. That would be an interesting thing, wouldn't it? Now, Trump. No, okay. Let me just get to Lindsey Graham for a minute here, right? Lindsey Graham is so nakedly partisan and pro-Trump on almost all issues. I was incredibly surprised when he was one of the people that actually pushed back against Donald Trump when it came to arming the Saudis. I honestly don't know what that decision is from. It could be him just not wanting to give Muslims weapons. Okay, well, that would track for Lindsey Graham, I guess. But in this case, it's actually the right thing to do because the Saudi Arabians are using those weapons to kill innocent Yemeni citizens or civilians. So I guess in that point, he may be doing it for the wrong reasons, but he's actually doing the right thing. Fair enough. But the point is, Lindsey Graham almost always agrees with Donald Trump. And Lindsey Graham probably knows that impeachment would be a disaster for Donald Trump and the Republican Party, as it would expose criminality and put them on the spot for defending that criminality. And so that's why they're like, no impeachment, no impeachment, no impeachment. Don't do it. No, it's going to help Trump. And here's Nancy Pelosi, what is it? She calls herself a master legislator. And she just goes, Oh, yeah, no, you're right. It would help Trump more than it would hurt him. No, that's completely wrong. Completely wrong. But anyway, more tweets here. After that, Trump says this presidential harassment. Of course. Now, there's some responses on social media to that. Michelangelo Cinerale says Trump is just a child screaming out in anger and frustration, which I think is fairly accurate because at least he's got the mind of a child. There's also this tweet, which is great, which was first, I think, one of the first to be deleted because of a typo. Now, that does not necessarily happen all the time or a lot because generally he just leaves the typos in there. But this one, he felt, oh no, it's too obvious of a typo. I'm going to have to delete it. I'm going to have to fix it. It said, and this was a response to a Bloomberg piece. European landmarks have a question they desperately need answering. How do you stop the tourists from coming? And Donald Trump replied, this is because the euro and other currencies are devalued against the dollar, putting the U.S. at a big disadvantage. The Fed interest rate way too high, added to ridiculous quantitative tightening. They don't have a clue. I don't know how that relates to the other one. But hey, I guess. To which Aaron Rupar responded, they don't have a clue, Trump proclaims, of a Fed in which he personally chosen 4 of the 5 sitting members. Well, that doesn't matter, though. Donald Trump could appoint all 5, and he would still throw them under the bus. Bruce Fulton says, this would be a terribly dangerous thing for a president of the U.S. to say about the Federal Reserve if anybody took anything this president says seriously. St. Journal says gibberish. And the author of the Bloomberg piece said this, quote, no, Mr. Trump, it has nothing at all to do with the euro. Nothing about the exchange rate movements in the last 15 years could induce a big increase in tourism. The real reasons are named in the piece. Okay, fair enough, right? But good luck getting him to read that or anything. He doesn't read his briefings, doesn't do his job. It's campaigns, eats hamburgers, and tweets lies. Presidential harassment, though, as he calls it, is nothing more than actually people trying to hold him accountable. So, of course, if you're a criminal trying to hold him accountable, it's going to feel like harassment. No, but you want real presidential harassment. This is what it is. Look at Benghazi. Something like 7 investigations, 9 investigations, something like that. Nonstop hearings where Republicans themselves who spearheaded this found absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Funny how you don't hear anything about Benghazi anymore. Very strange. Or how about the literal birther nonsense? Where they said this president is illegitimate because he's not an American. How low can you go? Well, if you're a Republican, pretty damn low. How is that not presidential harassment? That's real presidential harassment. No, as usual, it's the whining and crying of a thin-skinned idiot trying to project his own criminality to the others. That's what this is, and that's what these tweets are. Okay. All right. Here's what we're going to do. Take a quick break. We'll come back. We got the Kushner story. We'll talk about his criminality because the whole family is basically a crime family at this point. So we'll go talk about that, and then we'll go after Joe Biden. So fun times. All right. Stay right here. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Around the Nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Okay, so I've got some good comments here from you guys. Sarge Check says, Trump is a schoolyard bully that just got his butt kicked. Cried all the way home. That's good. LL says, Republicans always accuse everyone else of the crimes they themselves are committing. Yep. Non-member comments here. Kira Jade says, make America great at failing. That's his real slogan. And then disagreement here from one of the audience members, Eldridge Davis, on my comments about Hillary Clinton. Says Clinton was more popular. That's why she won the race, but lost the presidency thanks to the Electoral College. Look, there's some truth in that. And then also, I think we're both right here. And let me tell you why. So, yes, she did lose because of the Electoral College. Yes, she did get more votes from voters, of course, right? 3 to 4 million votes, right? However, when it comes to approval ratings, right? Her approval rating is lower than Donald Trump. She has a 36% favorable rating. And I'm sorry, I keep mixing up favorable and approval rating. Her favorability is at 36%. And it's been steady since she ran for office. Both in 2008, 2016, her favorability ratings took a huge hit. They're in the mid-30s, while Donald Trump is at 41% or around 43% now. Clinton's has not recovered. She continues to be deeply unpopular, even more than Donald Trump, despite winning more votes. Because everybody looked at her and said, well, look, Donald Trump would be a complete disaster. I don't like Hillary Clinton, so I'm going to vote for her because Donald Trump's a monster. But that doesn't mean that she has high favorability ratings. You don't have to be highly favorable to win an election. You just have to be less of a monster than someone else. But apparently that was not even enough because she didn't campaign where it counts. And that was Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. But anyway, interesting discussion to have. So I think we're both kind of right about that in our own way. Happy Dude with a super chat says, it's dangerous to go alone. Take this cash. I love the Zelda reference. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So, yeah, she's in the woods. That's right. Okay. Anyway, let's dive in. Let's get back into the show. Okay. Let's get the sidebars up here. The correct ones without screwing something up. Now there's a new report out by The Guardian that shows that Jared Kushner is a deeply corrupt individual and may have some conflicts of interest. No, really. I know. We're supposed to be surprised, but we're not. Now, nonetheless, it is a great report from The Guardian, doing some real journalism here. Now, in the report, they note that a company partly owned by Jared Kushner had received about $90 million in foreign funding from a very shady offshore vehicle since he entered the White House as a senior advisor to President Trump, who was also his father-in-law. Now, investment money flowed from overseas to the company called Cadre, while Kushner works as an international envoy to the U.S., according to corporate filings as well as interviews from people in the company. Now, the money apparently came through a vehicle run by Goldman Sachs in the Cayman Islands. Now, the Cayman Islands, you guys know, is a tax haven. Now, the benefit of course, using the Cayman Islands as a tax haven is not just shielding your taxes, but also you have guaranteed corporate secrecy. So we don't know a lot of the details, which is why it is an incredibly shady financial vehicle. Now, Kushner, who was married to Trump's eldest daughter, Ivanka, according to the article, kept a stake in Cadre after joining the administration, which you were supposed to divest from, while selling other assets. His holding is now valued at up to $50 million, according to financial disclosure documents. Now, obviously, getting money from foreign entities while you work as an envoy opens up some pretty big potential conflicts of interest. I mean, again, I shouldn't have to spell it out for you guys. It's deep corruption, right? Now, Jessica Tillipman, a lecturer at George Washington University Law School, who teaches government ethics and anti-corruption laws, said this, quote, "It would cause people to wonder whether he is being improperly influenced by still holding a stake in that company that's getting all this foreign funding." Well, to be fair, I think people have already wondered about whether or not Jared Kushner has conflicts of interest. Now, the idea that Kushner had some sort of interest was actually explored, and why he was initially denied a security clearance by officials when he joined the Trump administration. Now, of course, later on, he apparently got help from some pro-Trump officials to try to get that security clearance, even though he really shouldn't have one, having these conflicts of interest. Now, a whistleblower told Congress that it was blocked due to concerns about Kushner's outside business interests as well as foreign influence. And you're going to see at least one foreign influence here that we know about. I think Kushner, of course, is deeply corrupt and filled with foreign money. And, of course, I think also Ivanka is as well. The whole Trump family, I think, is filled with foreign money and conflict of interest and corruption. In fact, I think the whole family seems like they're running a criminal enterprise, okay? Profiting off the presidency, I think in a way that we've never seen so openly brazen before. It's the corruption, man. And, of course, the corruption is why it's completely legal right now to hide the people who have invested in that vehicle, thanks to, again, foreign tax havens and things like that. Now, funding from the Cayman Islands vehicle, according to the Guardian, goes directly into Cadre's real estate purchases in the U.S., according to sources familiar with the company's work. Cadre then charges an annual fee and takes a cut of the profit made from these properties. So this is foreign money going through this shady company in the Cayman Islands that then goes and uses that shady investment money to buy property in the U.S. To me, that sounds like, I don't know, money laundering, possibly. But we don't know. We don't know. So Cadre makes money from that. And, of course, Kushner, since he has a stake in the company, also profits handsomely. Again, wonder if there's any corruption here. If you don't see it, here's an example. Sources familiar with the Cadre setup said a small amount of money in the Goldman Cadre vehicle, estimated at about $1 million, came from our friends in Saudi Arabia. Now, other funding arrived through vehicles based in the British Virgin Islands, adding another layer of offshore secrecy to its origins. Or, if you ask Trump, it's oranges. Now, who has a good relationship with Saudi Arabia? Oh, right, Donald Trump and Jared Kushner. In fact, as Trump's special representative in the Middle East, Kushner has developed a closer relationship with Saudi Arabian officials, particularly the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, or who I like to call Mohammed Bone Salman. Now, Virginia Cantor, the chief ethics counsel at the watchdog group Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, said the opaque investments in Cadre would continue raising concerns as Kushner carried out his government duties. Quote, "It was one of the only assets that Kushner retained, and it continues to collect foreign investors without transparency." And so, again, it's important to point out how you are supposed to divest all of your assets, but much like his father-in-law, Jared Kushner has not divested from all of his assets and continues to make money from Cadre, from holding this stake in this company that does real estate. Now, finally, Cadre also, more corruption, right? Recently announced plans to raise multi-million-dollar funds to invest in real estate development in parts of the U.S. covered by the Trump administration's Opportunity Zones program. Opportunity Zones. Now, an Opportunity Zone is basically a place that offers valuable tax breaks to developers and investors. Now, what is a developer? Who is a developer? Jared Kushner. Kushner is also known for being basically a slumlord, right? And owning some very shady investments, to which he tried to get other foreign funding, most famously from, wasn't Qatar, was it? Nah, I'm kind of blanking on that. The United Arab Emirates, perhaps. One of those Middle Eastern countries who was allies of Saudi Arabia, he ended up trying to get funding from, which didn't actually work. He wasn't actually able to get funding from them. But he certainly tried, and he certainly tried to use his leverage as a member of the Trump administration in order to get that funding. Now, the program, and here's even more corruption, was championed by Ivanka Trump, according to a father who said at a White House event that Ivanka had been pushing this very, very hard. Now, the remarks raised allegations that policies she worked on could benefit her husband financially. And of course, to that they say, oh, no, how dare you even make that accusation? How dare you? My husband and I are running a stand-up business, as is my father. But you shouldn't be running a business at all or having any sort of stake in these companies, even if you started the company yourself. Look, if Jimmy Carter had to give up his peanut farm in order to become president, then why shouldn't Jared Kushner be forced to divest from that now what is worth $50 million in a shady-ass company? And look, he's nearly made $100 million from this, right? And if there's a massive investment from other investors, he's going to profit. They're going to make millions of dollars. Millions. And then who knows what favors Kushner is going to owe to, what I believe to be multiple foreign investors. This is why we make people divest everything before they get into power. To avoid this kind of corruption and influence. And to stop people from personally profiting off the decisions they make in government. And that's what's important about this. This administration is so openly and deeply corrupt. And I'm not saying any other administration is not corrupt. What I'm saying is that I think this is probably the most corrupt administration, at least that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Of all the time covering politics, and I admit I haven't been covering politics for decades and decades, but I think it's long enough that I know a corrupt administration now when I see it. And this is corrupt. And it's no surprise because, well, the fish rots from the head down. And this fish is pretty rotted. Okay. All right. Let's go to Biden. Now, former Vice President Joe Biden is the establishment frontrunner, right? And he has some very interesting notions about working with the Republican Party. And by interesting, I mean completely outdated and wrong. Now, here's what I mean. At a recent fundraiser on Monday night filled with both donors and lobbyists, shocker, Biden said the Republicans in Congress would stop following Trump, stop working with Trump, and actually start to work with Biden on what they call bipartisan legislation because, well, they'll know better. Let me give you the quote here. Quote, here's the deal. We all know, and I don't think this is hyperbole, we all know in our gut this election is the most important election we've ever engaged in. I mean, let's be honest. What presidential candidate hasn't said that? Just saying. But he continues, and not just because I'm running. With Trump gone, you're going to begin to see things change because these folk know better. They know this isn't what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, look, the Republicans, they know better. They know better. So, if I win the election, we're going to finally have bipartisanship. At last, they're going to finally want to work with me. Oh, my God. Oh. See, I have an example of how completely 100% naive this is, right? I mean, do you guys remember? Some of you might not. Back in 2012, during the election, after 4 years of unprecedented obstruction by Republicans in Congress, specifically the Senate, Obama, who was running for re-election, said this, quote, I believe that if we're successful in this election, when we're successful in this election, and they were, the fever may break because there's a tradition in the Republican Party of more common sense than that. My hope, my expectation is that after the election, now that it turns out that the goal of beating Obama doesn't make much sense again because I'm not running again, that we can start getting some cooperation again. That was Obama back in 2012. Did the fever break? Did it? Well, just ask Justice Merrick Garland. Oh, wait. Right. Or look at the numerous lower court positions that Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell have gotten to fill because Republicans blocked Obama. Unprecedented obstruction. Tell me again, Joe, how the fever is going to break if you're in charge. President Obama was deeply wrong about this. And it's not as if Joe Biden wasn't there to see it. He was literally the vice president. Was he not paying attention for all those years of obstruction? But no. Joe says, I got this. Don't worry. Republicans are going to love to work with me. No matter what, no matter who wins the presidency, Republicans are going to block everything. Unless it's something that they want. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they actually would block stuff that they want. Who knows? They aren't just a party of no. They're the party of hell no. Their purpose, and you have to remember this, their purpose is to break down government so that when they get into power, they can sell off the government to private interests, to their donors. Or, of course, they can also use the government to crush women who want abortions, which is what they're doing. Joe Biden should know this. But yet, he seems to still labor under the idea that Donald Trump is a disease and not actually a symptom of the disease. But then again, if he admitted that that was true, then it would delegitimize his entire campaign message. That we should go back to the Obama years, where everything was great because the center was in charge, the centrists. Not realizing, of course, the centrists empowered the fascist Republican Party. So, I mean, it's crazy that people still have that notion, that there is still that idea that, no. You understand, the Obama years were fantastic. And if we just go back, everything's going to be okay. But wait, you've ignored that the Obama years helped create Donald Trump. And not just the Obama years, but the Clinton, Bush, Obama years, right? All that neoliberalism, that's what helped create Trump. There's more. He also said this, quote, and this is about Wall Street now. He says, Wall Street and significant bankers and people, they're all positive. They can be positive influences in this country. But they didn't build the country. The middle class built the country. Oh, but, bankers and the rich and Wall Street, they can be positive influences. Not when their number one priority by law is to maximize profit. Normally that maximization of profit, their number one mandate, goes against what the public wants. The public wants to tax the rich. Overwhelming majority want to tax rich people. 70%, over 70%, want stuff like Medicare for all. I mean, raising the minimum wage, to a living wage, $15 an hour. Stuff like that. The American people also want to vastly reduce the power of big business and the influence of big business on government. That is not something that the financial sector specifically wants. The financial sector specifically also does not want regulation, whereas the American people actually do want rules to protect them from predatory lending. Things like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, when it actually was protecting consumers. That's what the American people want. Look, here's the other thing, right? And why this is so absurd. Wall Street bankers are big corporations. They've killed the middle class. They've helped kill the middle class, right? And yet Biden says, oh, no. Wall Street can be a great thing. Maybe if we regulate them a lot, but not currently. And I don't necessarily see Joe Biden's plan to go back to regulation, to, for example, institute a rule like Glass-Steagall, right? Which separates investment banking and what I like to call casino banking. But no. Here's the thing. I don't get the point of this statement. I just don't get it. Why he would say that. Unless, of course, it's to his donors to say, don't worry. Daddy Biden, I got your back. Ain't nobody raising your taxes. Ain't nobody regulating you more. No, you're going to be fine. Now, of course, this got a lot of pushback by progressives. There's Ben Spielberg, co-founder of the progressive site 34 Justice, said this, and this is quoting Biden, "They're all positive or Republicans know better." Would be a more fitting slogan for the Joe Biden campaign. Adam Johnson, host of Citations Needed podcast, said this, quote, "Clinton tried the same strategy in 2016, and her campaign knew it backfired even before her surprise election loss. Just as a strategic matter, one is baffled why Democrats wouldn't hang the toxic label of Trumpism on older Republican Party until the end of time. That is unless, like Biden, they work for a donor class before they even do a party, much less working people." I think he's absolutely right. Nailed it. Again. What do I keep telling you? Me and other hosts, Donald Trump is not an aberration. He is not the disease. He's a symptom of the disease. And he's a logical conclusion about the racism and anti-intellectual streak inside the Republican base. And combined with the neoliberal economics and corruption embraced by both the Democratic and Republican parties, the establishment. Trumpism, right now, is just another word for the modern conservative movement. And while you have some Republicans that are turned off by the rhetoric, most of them love the policy. And look, the policy, of course, is more tax cuts, deregulation, climate denial, restriction of abortions, racist immigration policies, on and on and on. This is what they've always believed. The only thing that Trump is doing differently than any other Republican president is he's just saying the quiet part loud. In fact, he's screaming the quiet part, and Republicans are like, no, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Because you're going to out us for what we actually believe and for what we actually are. Hypocrites. And that's why replacing Donald Trump will not do anything. Biden centrism, or a centrist candidate like Biden, will only continue to perpetuate the conditions for a similar kind of candidate, or even worse. If you nominate Biden, and if he wins, right, temporary reprieve at most, because guaranteed, next election, we will have something far worse than Donald Trump down the line. Do not nominate Joe Biden. We have so many good candidates. We have progressives, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren even, that would do so much better and could defeat Trump. Do not nominate Joe Biden, because it would be one of the worst mistakes. It'd be like nominating Hillary Clinton all over again. Hear me now. Quote me later. Okay. All right. So those of you who got to go to TYT, you're going to miss a good segment. Because we're going to be talking about Jon Stewart going after Congress, but you can always catch the videos later on. at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TYTNation. So check it out later on. That video goes up later today. For those of you leaving the TYT, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for watching. For those of you who are going to stay, let's go to this segment and finish out the show. Okay. Now, comedian Jon Stewart was on Capitol Hill earlier to testify on a bill that would help 9/11 first responders. And while he was there, he tore into Congress. Take a look.
Behind me, a filled room of 9/11 first responders. And in front of me, a nearly empty Congress. Sick and dying, they brought themselves down here to speak to no one. It's shameful. It's an embarrassment to the country, and it is a stain on this institution. And you should be ashamed of yourselves for those that aren't here, but you won't be. Because accountability doesn't appear to be something that occurs in this chamber. We don't want to be here. Lou doesn't want to be here. None of these people want to be here. But they are, and they're not here for themselves. They're here to continue fighting for what's right. Lou's going to go back for his 69th chemo. The great Ray Pfeiffer would come down here, his body riddled with cancer and pain, where he couldn't walk. And the disrespect shown to him and to the other lobbyists on this bill is utterly unacceptable.
Damn. All right. Stewart also noted that there wasn't a single lawmaker at the hearing who, on the anniversary of September 11th, failed to tweet, "Never forget the heroes of 9/11. Well, gee, never forget the heroes, but they seem to be forgetting to help the heroes. I mean, he said afterwards, here they are, and where are they? Where are they? Well, they're not there. Not that many people showed up. In fact, I'm going to give you the number here in a minute. But he said, quote, "It would be one thing if their callous indifference and rank hypocrisy were benign, but it's not. Your indifference costs these men and women their most valuable commodity, time. It's the one thing they're running out of." Now, my question is, why are they there again? This is not the first time he's had to go and talk to Congress about this, embarrassed Congress about this. This should not be a thing. It has been 18 years since 9/11. There is now a generation of young adults, people who can now vote, who grew up in a post-9/11 world. Can you imagine never knowing what it was like before September 11th? Just growing up in that it's insane when you think about it. And there are people there who still do not get the care that they deserve. And not only that, but of course, there are people that never knew anything but the world after the war on the so-called war on terror. I mean, the whole thing is just pathetic. Pathetic. Now, back in 2010, Congress passed the James Zadroga Act. It's the 9/11 Health and Compensation Act, right? Now, interestingly enough, when they passed that in 2010, this was over opposition from Republicans who said it cost too much. Oh, it's $7 billion. We can't afford that. We can't afford that. No. These are the same Republicans, by the way, at least the ones who are still there in Congress, because it's been a while, that passed the Bush tax cuts and Trump's tax cuts for the rich if they were still there. Republicans have never met a tax decrease they didn't like, unless it's for the middle class, to be fair. Now, that act was reauthorized in 2015 for about 90 years. That was, again, after Jon Stewart had to go embarrass them for not taking any action. But here we go. Again, a portion of the law, the Victim Compensation Fund, was only funded for 5 years to the end of 2020. Again, because of mostly Republicans. Now, the fund aimed to provide necessary financial support for the thousands who suffered serious medical issues, including a spate of cancer diagnoses after the 2001 attacks. Now, what kind of cancer diagnosis? Dr. Jacqueline Moline, chair of occupational medicine, epidemiology, and prevention at Hofstra School of Medicine, testified before the panel that currently more than 11,000 types of cancer have been reported since the attacks on 9/11, ranging from glioblastoma, an aggressive form of brain cancer, I believe that's the one that killed John McCain, to debilitating lung cancers. So that is no joke. So you can see how important it is to reauthorize that funding, because some of these people have lifetime diagnoses and complications from what they did. And yet, nobody showed up. Who showed up? Who showed up? Just a little over half of the 14-member subcommittee members were present. Most of them were Democrats. I think there was maybe one Republican that was still there. I mean, it's crazy. And to be fair, of course, you had the New York delegation. And it included Jerry Nadler, Carolyn Maloney, both Democrats. One of the Republicans was GOP Representative Peter King. And look, they have introduced the Never Forget the Heroes of Act of 2019 that would reauthorize the Victim Compensation Fund. So Congress is kind of doing something, but not really. Now, that same piece of legislation has support of Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand. But where's the rest? Where's everybody else? Where's everybody else? Especially when it comes nationally, right? Look, I don't live in New York. I'm not a New Yorker. But I care about this because this is an important issue. Now, I believe that everybody should have health care. I believe everybody. But maybe we could start with the people that literally ran into the buildings as they were burning and falling down. We could at least start there, right? And look, as for the piece of legislation, my worry is that this could get used as a political football or used as a rider to other bills. We need basically a clean bill. We need a unanimous consent to just do it already. And of course, Stewart, when he was there, asked, why is this not unanimous consent? It is beyond my comprehension why it's not. He also went after Congress for those that consider this a New York matter. Quote, more of these men and women are going to get sick and they're going to die. And I'm awfully tired of hearing that this is a New York issue. Al-Qaeda didn't shout death to Tribeca. They attacked America. Well, it's true. And again, this is not a New York issue. It's healthcare for Americans. And in this case, again, for people who ran towards danger, not away from it. Unlike most of the cowardly politicians. No, they ran into the danger because it was their job. And they did it without hesitation. So my question is, why is Congress not doing their job? After all these years, why does a comedian have to come out periodically to Congress and embarrass them into doing the right thing? And that's what this is. This is an absolute embarrassment. Just pass a damn bill, a clean bill, a unanimous consent, and do your damn jobs. It's not that hard. Okay. That's it. Thank you guys for running on the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream. Please consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation to support independent progressive media like this show and many others. Thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you guys tomorrow.